Hi, this is Alicia and thank you for coming by. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the ins and outs of buying properties in foreclosure. You know, buying a foreclosure property is really not that hard. The real challenge is when you have to spend money. You need cash and how to structure the deal. To be a successful foreclosure investor, you need to understand the state laws. First and foremost, you need to understand the laws of your state and the regulations of your state. You need to know what kind of a foreclosure system you have. So is it a trustee sale that you're dealing with? Are you in a trust deed state? Are you in a mortgage state? And is your state a judicial foreclosure state? So, for example, in California, where I am, this is a trust deed state, and we use a trustee sale method. Actually, we use both trustee sales and judicial sales, but most of the time, I see the trustee sales method being used to foreclose on property. Okay, so no matter what state you're in, let's talk about the basics. When a homeowner falls behind in their mortgage, right? Typically, they are in default. Even just after 1 month, they're in default. And, you know, the problem is once they are 1 month behind, it becomes more difficult. Because if it was difficult to make that one payment, can you imagine what two payments would be, how difficult it would be to make 2 payments? And then it's like a snowball effect. Then 2 payments become 3 payments, triple hard, then 4 payments, and then before you know it, they're in foreclosure. It's crazy. So even though they are in default after only 1 month, the bank doesn't usually foreclose upon them or start the process just after 1 month. Typically, what I see is that the bank is starting the foreclosure after 6 months, maybe around 6 to 9 months, and that's when they get a notice of default, or in a judicial state, a lis pendens is filed. Actually, especially after COVID, and I've seen this before. I've had a homeowner where they were 5 years in arrears. I've seen homeowners, not uncommon for me to see owners in foreclosure for 3 years. So what is the norm right now is after a year, a notice of default is being filed. So they're being given a generous amount of time. And that's probably, I don't know, but probably after COVID, there has been a lot of pressure maybe from the government bodies in order to avoid homelessness. But there are more foreclosures than you can actually see because they're just defaults that are not notices of defaults yet. So what is the main cause of a foreclosure? In my experience, the major cause of a foreclosure is negative equity. That's when they owe more than the property is valued. That means they're upside down, right? And that's usually when I see the most foreclosures. And then that usually happens because there is an economic downturn. And so then the property values just plummet. For example, and this can be isolated to an area even. So it may not be a countrywide recession or something like we had, but it could be an area situation. For example, a whole industry in an area that goes out of business, that just closes their doors, and then thousands of people in that area lose their job. So an industry shuts their doors and their employees are no longer employed, which in turn causes other companies or other industries to suffer, which means that now more people are being laid off. Another scenario that causes this kind of a thing to happen when people are buying new homes. What happens is that they go in to see the builder and they're trying to buy a dream home. There's nothing wrong with that. Trying to buy a dream home. And what happens, In order to entice the buyer, the builder sometimes offers a cash incentive. So $15,000, for example, towards your closing costs or towards your down payment. And so, of course, a buyer is going to take any money they can get to buy the property. And especially, if it's something where they're maybe just coming out of an apartment and just need a home, and now they finally can buy one with help. And so what ends up happening is the property gets financed 100%, 110%. And of course, the payments are going to be high. And unbeknownst to everybody, especially to the buyer, the builder is going to charge top value, top price. So that number, that value is going to be much higher than the surrounding houses, already built houses in the area. So if the surrounding areas have houses that are $200,000, that builder is going to be charging something like $350 to $300 minimum, and then up from there. And they usually get that. The appraisers that they work with usually appraise the property. If it's a newer home, then of course they are not comparable to the already built homes that are in the area, built, let's say, 10 years ago. It's not going to be comparable. So they get the higher priced. And so now the homeowner overpays for a property. They have a higher payment, house payment to make, much higher than the payments they were coming from. So that could be a problem. So maybe they're making payments after a year, something happens, they miss a payment, or it becomes just too expensive to handle, and now they want out. So now they put the property on the market for sale, and that's when they find out that the property is over leveraged. They can't get the value for the house that they thought, because now they are 100%, 110% financed. Therein lies the problem. I usually see these quite a bit. Yeah, of course, who can forget the housing recession of 2008, when people got the ninja loans and people had no business buying a house. Well, they got in because they could fog a mirror. Hey, and so now what am I going to do now? I'm stuck in this house that I can't pay for, and I'm going to try my best to keep it, but I can't keep it. Now what? And so therein lies the problem. That was another problem. Are we going to see another one of those? I hope not. I really hope not. But one thing I can tell you, though, is that a lot of people lost big time. They lost their homes. They lost their marriages. They lost, money, because investors also who invested in these funds lost money as well. But there were some investors that made a fortune. I remember those 2008, I had about 17 deals on my desk, and they were all subject to. And I was getting deeds every left and right. I loved it. Where are the opportunities investing in foreclosure? There are 3 basic ways that you can invest in foreclosures. One way is the pre-foreclosure. That's the time before it goes to the sale and it goes back to the bank. So this is when the homeowner still has the deed. They still own the house. They're still in it, and they're still trying to figure out what to do. So this is the time when a savvy investor can get in there and negotiate big time with that owner, hopefully helping them, and everybody wins. So I like that one quite a bit. So that is the pre-foreclosure. Then there is the sheriff's sale. That's the auction. In Florida, for example, it's called a sheriff's sale, right? Because it's a judicial state. But in California, then it's called an auction, just a trustee sales auction. So that period is when the property is auctioned off at the courthouse steps or an attorney's office or wherever it's being held. Anyone could go down and even watch the process and buy. You need lots of cash, and you need to go down with the knowledge of knowing that the property you are trying to invest in or buy may be pulled out of the auction at any minute. And that's just how it works, for lots of different reasons. So that could be annoying, it's a waste of time. You spend the whole day down there and then the property gets pulled out of auction. Okay, and then the other time that you can buy is the REO. That's a good time. The REO is where the bank takes back the property. So if the property wasn't sold at the auction, then the bank gets to take it back, they take it back. And usually ones that they take back are the ones that are over leveraged because they can't get as much for it from an investor, right? Savvy investors not buying those. They're going to buy something that they can put value in, and there's enough equity in there that they can bring up the equity and make a fortune. So the ones without the equity, and of course some of the ones that need a lot of work and all that stuff, sometimes they go back to the bank too. So the lender then has, unfortunately, thousands of homes are being taken back every month by lenders. Then what happens is they get listed for sale with a realtor just so they can recoup their investment. And unfortunately, there's no guarantee as far as the shape that the property is going to be in. The lender, the bank isn't going to guarantee anything because they don't know. So that is what happens at the REO. So where is the best opportunity for investors, for small investors anyway? Especially if you're just starting out, where is the best opportunity? I think it depends on how much money you have and how much experience you have, of course. And I want to add how much patience you have too. My opinion is that, and where I started is with pre-foreclosures. The main reason, or the biggest reason why you want to invest in pre-foreclosures is because you get to work with people. The biggest thing is you get to help out someone else to solve their problems. And that helps everybody because eventually it'll help the bank anyways. But you're helping a person by buying their properties and so that they can sell it to you. The second reason is that you can structure the most creative deals, including subject to financing. You can structure creative deals at pre-foreclosure stage more than you can do that. You can't do that with the REO and the auctions. So the third reason is you don't really need as much cash depending on the deal that you're structuring. The fourth reason is that the property, now you can actually see it, touch it, talk to the former owners. You can buy title insurance and all that good stuff. And you can't do that with the other ones, especially with the auction one. All right, so then you won't need to evict anybody either. Because believe me, that's a big deal, especially when you're buying at the auction. And even REOs, they'll leave them in there. You have to evict them yourself. So you won't have to do any evictions here. And it's relatively lower risk. So I know there's a big elephant in the room, right? And you're probably asking, so if they're in foreclosure, that means a notice of default has been filed or a list pendant was filed in the courthouse. How do we remove the foreclosure so we can keep the property? That, my friend, requires a lot of skill and also knowledge. So that I will give you some info on that next time. At the auction sale, for example, like I said, you're going to need lots of money, cash, not just money, cash money. You're going to need cash money and lots of it. Because then you're given a schedule, come in with $10,000 and it's non-refundable. And then after you come in with $10,000, after you win the bid, about 2 days after, you got to come in with the rest of it. The problem with it is that there's no traditional financing here. It's not like you can go to your bank and then get a loan and then use that towards this type of opportunity. Unless you have like a home equity loan, like out here, for example, if you own $1 million home and you have like $500,000 equity, then you got some money. You can maybe borrow a HELOC loan against that, and then you can just draw down on it. The only problem, well, there's other problems. So the other problem is, of course, there's no subject to opportunity here. So you're not can't do it. No can do. You can't even get title insurance. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't do any inspections either. Think about it. You can do it maybe in most cases you can. You can if, let's say, the property is vacant and then, you go by the property and you use your investor key, and then you go in there and take a look at the property. That's okay. But if somebody's living in the property, especially like the former owner now, the owner is living in the property, you're not going to be able to see anything. I've had properties that I have owned taken over subject to, and they went to auction, and I've had it where investors came by talking to my tenants, or talking to the people that's in there. And basically what happens is they try to talk to them and tell them all kinds of things, you know what I mean? And this was up in New York where things are very aggressive up there. But needless to say, I did save that property. I ended up selling it for a small fortune, and it's a good thing I saved it. It actually went into auction. And but one thing that some people don't know is that there's a right of redemption in some states where you can actually take the property as the homeowner, take the property back. Some give you 10 days, some give you 2 weeks, some up to 6 months. It depends on your state laws, so you need to check that one. So I would love to teach a little bit more on how you buy properties subject to when they're in the pre-foreclosure state. What happens if they go into auction while you still have them and have the deed? All right, so we'll talk about that. So here is the problem with those auctions too, is that, like I said, you have to evict people, which is a dirty work. And then, as if that's not bad enough, there might be squatters there, people that are not going to be happy to see you, and they have rights, especially in this state. They got rights, and that's going to slow you down. And now, you've got all your monies, in a property that is, you've got your money in a property, and now you have squatters that you have to deal with. More money, more cash outlay to get rid of them. Gonna have to hire an attorney. Can't do it by yourself. Unless you have a bouncer or somebody like that. Could go in there and beat up somebody and get them out. But I wouldn't recommend it. No, don't do it. Problem is, you don't know what you're buying. You don't really know what you're getting. And so that's a really high risk. Then there's the bank-owned property. This is when the bank takes it back, and then what they do in order to get, that they don't make their money just by foreclosing on a property, right? They make their money when they recoup those funds. So now the bank has to take it in, REO, takes them forever to get it back on the market, usually a couple months. And then, because I remember calling the bank, when is it coming? Who's going to be listing it, so I can get my offer in there before everybody else does. So the bank puts it back on the market. They list it on the market and MLS with a realtor. And then, of course, the realtor is trained to get multiple offers. They're not trying to just get one and done. No, they're trying to fish out everybody and get the highest offer they can get for the property. So it's all about the bank and nothing but the bank. And you're sitting there as the investor hoping that you can get that property. It could be inflexible. They can be inflexible, those banks. And it could be definitely hard because of all the multiple offers that are on the table. Especially over here where it's like a foreclosure. Oh my God, everybody is trying to buy that foreclosure. So yeah, good luck. Remember your strategy here. You don't really need to be an expert buyer to buy pre-foreclosures or foreclosures or bank-owned property. Not really. But you don't need 100 of them either. You just need one. You should focus on quality, the quality of the deal that you have, rather than trying to get a lot of them, because the truth is just one property can set you up for life. because you know that one property can turn into 4 units and then turn into 12 unit building, and the rest can be your future. So even if you buy just one house a year, you know, that's in a foreclosure situation, that one house is still worth it. Very much worth your time. This is Alicia. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe and head on over to mycashflowuniversity.com, where we can chat a little bit more about your deals and we can partner on some deals.